CD Projekt Red is a studio full of creative people known for works such as the Witcher series, most prominently The Witcher 3, and then its massive expansion DLCs, and of course, however, over the past several weeks, they have been in the spotlight for flipping the script on their reputation, sucking back up a lot of good faith that they spilled over the debacle that was Cyberpunk's launch. But that's the past, and they're ushering in a new era by releasing PR statements on how their next big game will focus on releasing a finished product on launch day. Like, that's something that they have to state.
Hey yo, that's messed up, man.
They are moving on to bigger and better things with their new Witcher game. But today isn't about The Witcher.
No.
Today is a celebration of Cyberpunk's comeback and its DLC expansion. Now, I don't know how to start this off without it sounding completely crazy and out of context, but Cyberpunk is like a fridge you got delivered to your house by employees that don't give a shit because they aren't paid enough to. After they left, you found out that it actually came broken, but you managed to snag that warranty deal. You sent it away for that 3-year repair service, only to get it back to see that they did a lot more work than you were expecting. It looks different, but you open it up to see it's clearly the same appliance, just with some fancy new tweaks. It's apparent that it's got that sweet 2.0 update everyone has been talking about, and there's something begging for your attention in the freezer, oddly enough, but it's got a padlock on it for some reason, and there's a price tag that reads $39.99 or $29.99 if you live in the USA. Also, if you live in the USA, screw you because games are cheaper for you and I'm mad jealous. Logically, you want to check out the product that sits in front of you before you shell out more money, so that exchanging goods is going to have to wait till later in the video. Now, I know you're asking yourself right now, is this man really going to spend the whole video making an elaborate analogy using a refrigerator for Cyberpunk? And to that I say the answer is yes! Or yes, I'm gonna try because it may end up being a total disaster, but that's what experimentation is for. At this point in time, we all know the story behind Cyberpunk's launch, so I don't think it's necessary to waste time going into the details considering it made headlines around the entire globe. But what I can tell you is, it was not cool. It was not cool at all. See what I did there? Get it? Because of fridge? Seriously though, we've all witnessed this esteemed developer's fall from the top shelf down into the crisper of no return, and it sure as hell wasn't a graceful fall either. There were bug compilations dominating Twitter, or X now, that's what it's called. X sounds like a naughty site, but anyway, they were dominating YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, MySpace, you name it. I mean, they were everywhere, and people that don't even game were getting in on the hate. After a substantial amount of time in the dark, with no updates, the team unceremoniously halted the hate being hurled their way with the release of their final update 2.0. An ambitious update that encompasses an entire year's worth of work, and they really did the unthinkable here. They managed to rinse themselves off before climbing the mantle once again to prove to all of us that their talent really does belong on the top shelf next to our favorite sauce. The delivery and install of the 2.0 update blew people's minds and showcased the team's passion for the game that had been forgotten by so many because despite the horrible launch that it was faced with, there were so many of us out here that wanted to see it rise. Now, the fine folks at CD Projekt Red finally decided to clean up their act and dispose of all their expired components. I'm trying to make an analogy for bugs by them getting rid of all the bad expired stuff in the fridge. But moving on, we have this fridge sitting in front of us. Let's open it up to see what the 2.0 update is all about, and no, I'm not going to talk super in depth about everything they added, but instead discuss how the update makes Cyberpunk the game it should have been at launch, and why it's the game I wanted right off the hop. Opening this beast up is a shock. It's got a new shiny coat of paint on the outside, but you weren't expecting it to be full of nutrition and hearty foods. As it turns out, the 2.0 update wasn't just for show. It's stuffed with all kinds of surprises. And there are some real goodies in here too, like what does this drink say? Car combat, that's awesome. Got a chocolate bar over here. What does that say? Revamped perks and skill trees. That's amazing. We needed that. There are also some other things too, like this revamped police and max tack ranch dip, this improved water physics jug, and oh, what is this? A remodeled Johnny Silverhand face orange? Thank God. Thank God, because I always thought his original face looked a little odd, and I'm so happy that they fixed it. To sweeten the deal, they also threw in a revamped UI and smarter and harder AI, as they put it. Kind of weird name, but AI is better now, so that's cool. All of these additions and enhancements in some way, shape, or form add on to the game in meaningful ways, giving this beautifully grimy, crime-riddled dystopia more heart and personality, while also giving players more freedom to make use of this play space. Well, most of the upgrades do this. Johnny Silverhand's face and the new water physics aren't really anything to write home about. In the grand scheme of things, these were aspects that they didn't have to touch on at all. But it does paint an admirable picture of a team that listened and cared, even about the small details. See, 2.0 really shines when you're dipping that chocolate bar into the ranch aggressively, so to speak, and don't actually do that because chocolate and ranch don't go together. Trust me, I tried it, it's disgusting. But what I'm saying is, both of these improvements showcase the game's skills, AI, and their new police system that actually works like police systems have since the 1990s. Cyberpunk's new skill trees and cyber mods really let you feel fulfilled in your character because each upgrade offers significant increases without having the cluttered and lackluster upgrade paths of old. There are branching skill trees for everyone's playstyle, whether you're a heavy hitter with gorilla arms that you want to rip doors off and punch holes in walls, you can do that. Or if you want to be a fast, sleek ninja seamlessly mixing blood-spewing melee attacks with smaller caliber guns. It's actually here that you can kind of adopt a playstyle and combat style like you see in the show Edgerunners. Hell, there are even cyber psycho effects now. You can't actually induce cyberpsychosis on yourself, but there are some small screen tearing and glitching effects that make it kind of seem like it anyway. The team also clearly spent a lot of time revamping the driving along with the various sounds these asymmetrical monstrosities emit. Driving feels a lot more fluid, cars have weight but don't feel too sluggish. I think it's a massive compliment for me to say that driving actually feels pretty good on a mouse and keyboard now. Each car just handles differently as well, so when you finally splurge your hard-earned blood-soaked eddies to snag a fancy schmancy ride, you're gonna feel the preemness of your whip. I honestly don't think the driving was all that bad prior to the 2.0 update, but I can see why they improved it because car combat is now a thing. It's really cool to now have options to engage in combat while driving, especially because police can now chase you and attempt to run you off the road, and while I'm grateful that they added this, I think I only really used this feature a handful of times in my 40 hours that I recently put into it. I think some new gigs centering around this mechanic would have went a long way, but we can't really have everything we want at the end of the day. These changes really represent new ways for the player to engage in its setting, and it offers a lot of potential gameplay scenarios, but it also makes Night City feel a lot more tangible. Around launch in the years preceding it, a lot of players, including myself, were pretty saddened by how shallow the world felt. I mean, I literally wrote like a 5-page script on how Cyberpunk wasn't utilizing its world. It looked amazing with its elaborate neon designs that clearly traded in utilitarianism for a facade of class and beauty. There are so many cool sights to see, but it just really felt like set dressing that had no repercussions for the player's actions, so there was no reason to actually try to engage with it. At launch, NPCs didn't really react to guns in their face, or they kind of did by disappearing.
What the hell?
And the police wouldn't show up, they just kind of sent robots that would sit in one spot. If you tried to trigger any of these systems, the illusion of a living city fell apart really quickly. Thank God that we have 2.0 that has stepped in and saved the day with its wanted system that increases in threat level every time you're naughty. I can't tell you how badass it is to see Max Tech show up in their flying shuttles. It's truly a holy shit moment because you know they're here to fuck shit up. You can now test your chrome against these chooms and see how long you can hold out too. There are now repercussions for running over that random NPC on the sidewalk as police pursue you in their cars. It's awesome, and it presents dynamic gameplay scenarios that help Night City feel real, so big kudos to them for that. Now with all of that said, if you do happen to inspect the interior of the fridge and its systems a little closer, you'll find that the developers missed some expired consumables, but they are harder to find here. During my latest outings, I still found glitched AI, problems with physics, and NPCs that contorted in ways that honestly had me rolling on the floor laughing because it was just so random. What the hell was that?
3 hours later.
I can't get that out of my mind. It looked like the freaking Lego game. I didn't have any problems with quests or gameplay, but it's apparent that the game had so many bugs at launch that it was just hard for them to clean house. This massive update alone really does make the game more enjoyable, and it's the perfect time for anyone that hasn't played it to finally jump in and get the experience that everyone should have gotten over 2 years ago. These new and improved systems help the fluidity of combat, give more player choice, and gameplay opportunities, and like I said before, it makes Night City as a setting way more striking. So you add all of these improvements onto the foundation of the base game, then combine that with the gripping story of corporate rule and the exploitation of impoverished people that have to deal with authoritarian control. It's awesome, but it's also a personal story of survival with a character as deep as the Marianas Trench. It's here that you have a stocked fridge that you can be happy about. But I think we're forgetting something. There's still a whole section of the fridge that we haven't even looked into yet, what I call the Phantom Freezer, for which we will liberate by transferring our hard-earned eddies over. The lock falls to the ground with a monstrous thud. The freezer door gracefully swings open. Also, don't make fun of my hybrid fridge, okay? I know it kind of sucks. What is this? It can't be. Is that Phantom Liberty ice cream? How could anyone pack this much flavor and soul into something so small? It's got love stuffed into every inch of this cylindrical container. There are so many different layers that play their own part in this flavor explosion that brings this package together in a cohesive, emotional thrill ride that may or may not have had me bawling like a kid that let go of his balloon out in the street. Maybe the kid deserved it, but he's still sad. Yes, the Phantom Liberty is an expansion that is absolutely brimming with fulfilling content that uses its incredible writing, twists, and characters to its full advantage, while also offering a small section of the map that managed to feel different both in its design but functionality as well. The place in question is Dogtown, a small piece of war-torn land forgotten that is now under an independent mercenaries' oppressive governorship. Though the setting Phantom Liberty puts forth is really only a few city blocks, its streets are dense with detail and missions to take on. These are stacked up rather than being spread out over large distances, seeing how Dogtown doesn't even make up a quarter of the original map. I'm one of the people that didn't really watch any of the trailers for the Phantom Liberty because it wasn't an expansion I was actively looking forward to despite all of the hype around it. I figured I'd pick it up on a sale like later down the line because these last couple of months have just been exceptionally busy with no shortage of releases for anticipated games. I beat Cyberpunk about 2.5 times, so I really wasn't exactly yearning to get back into it. Of course, one thing led to another. I jumped back on to see what all the improvements with the 2.0 update were, and I was really happy with it, so I liked it so much that I hurled my cash towards CDPR because I wanted to experience a new narrative in this world that I adore. Trying to keep up with gaming nowadays is impossible. You just can't do it, especially when you have a full-time 40-hour-a-week job. I'd like to think that I've played a lot of games in 2023, but in reality, I don't think I've touched even a quarter of them. One, it's hard to find time to do so, but two, it's become such an expensive hobby, as I'm sure you all know. I made a Remnant 2 video a couple months ago, and in that video, I made it clear that at that point in time, Remnant 2 was my game of the year because of just how much fun I had with it. But to bring the friginality back into this, here is Remnant 2, and then here is the Phantom Liberty. Phantom Liberty blew me away in ways that I didn't think were possible. It was beautiful, captivating, and emotionally engaging, even rivaling some great pieces of work of the past. Its tale of espionage and James Bond levels of spyness made for a bold change tonally from the main story that honestly seemed to fit the world better. The characters are all human with deep-rooted flaws and troubled pasts. It has some pretty heavy themes of trust and loyalty, both individual and to one's country. The seeds of mistrust are planted pretty much right out of the gate. You are really never sure who you can trust with your life, and that's what makes the twists and choices so impactful.
I can cure you. Once and for all.
Can't know how much I'd really love to believe you, but
I know, V. You've hit a dead end. Nowhere to turn. Been there. Believe me.
I enjoyed it so much that I went back and got all 4 major endings, with each having an impact on the end result, leaving me vulnerable to just a multitude of feelings. Right now I'm being quite vague, but I loved this expansion so much that I want to break down its layers and talk in depth about them. So if spoilers are concerned, you know what to do. As I mentioned before, the Phantom Liberty ice cream has layers, but each of them share a similarity in that without even one, the package wouldn't have the same impact or flavor, quote unquote, so to speak. So this is where it's gonna get pretty ridiculous, because I'm gonna attempt to make ice cream fit into this part of the video, and I love a challenge, so let's do it. This first section is called It's Not Just a Backdrop, which is referring to this new setting. Dogtown is kind of like the strawberry jam in Ben & Jerry's Strawberry Jammin'. Not a sponsor, by the way, but Ben & Jerry, love what you do and keep up the good work. Now, I'm not saying the Phantom Liberty is delicious. That would be ridiculous because you can't taste the game. Well, you probably could taste the game if there was a disc version, but I wouldn't recommend doing that. But what I'm saying is that when you open one of these coma-inducing bad boys, you're hit with that distinctive stripe of vibrant red jam. Now, if you're like me, initially, I was unsure if I was even okay with jam being in my ice cream. That just seems weird, but it looks so damn awesome. And like any sane person, I decided to take a bite and I realized that it looks amazing, yes, but diving into this ice cream is going to open a whole new level of dopamine for my mouth. Dogtown is a grimy-looking, long-abandoned tourist destination for the rich, now under the control of a mercenary gang that has shaped their new empire to their liking. It's a post-war locale with infrastructure that has clearly been put on the back burner. However, there are some moments of brevity from that grime because within its seedy underbelly there are lots of places that exude class and style for rich business. It showcases it well, and like I said before, Dogtown as a whole isn't really as large as people might think it is, which gives credit to the developers for managing to make this small section of the map visually diverse, not just from Night City in its entirety, but different districts of Dogtown itself. Before you're actually let off the leash on your own accord, there is plenty of world building around this setting, like walking through a museum where you can prompt dialogue about landmarks you'll later embark into, if you so choose to do that. There is also a lot to be said about Dogtown during the expansion's runtime, making it a place that for me felt a lot more concise and impactful than Night City really ever did.
NCPD, gang wars, not in Dogtown. Taxes, who the fuck needs them? In Dogtown, I keep your business safe.
It's steeped in rich lore that's not only interesting, but it also ties important characters directly to it within its main story. If the player really wants to, they can learn a lot more about its leader Kurt Hansen that betrayed his nation of the NUSA to further his own gains by taking over Dogtown during the Unification War, where the United States declared war on the Free States prior to the game's events. That may have been a lot of information, but basically what I'm trying to say is the new United States wanted to control everything, and people fought back that were in the Free States. The design and purpose of this setting allowed a lot of creative liberties because it was supposed to fund the expansion of wealthy tourism in Night City. There is a wide range of visually well-defined architecture and buildings to go into. The Heavy Hearts Club is an elegant club encased in a neon pyramid that sits in the heart of Dogtown, and there's a giant blue light that emits into the sky endlessly. You can go there, have a few drinks, and hit the dance floor, but its real purpose is a place of prospering illegal movements that reside on the second floor. The Moth, on the other hand, is a dingy rustic bar located in the slums called The Stacks, where everyday working and living folk that reside far outside of a villainous lifestyle can come to drown their sorrows and forget about how terrible their life really is. Because yeah, if you're just a normal person in Night City and the area surrounding it, life's gotta be absolutely terrible. Yet, despite all of that, it maintains a level of quaintness that not many places here radiate. It's not all about how it looks either, like how V and others interact with the world makes it more tangible. The perfect example is V trying to use an old phone, and because they have been obsolete for so long, Johnny Silverhand has to show him or her how to use it, and it's quite funny. During many of the missions, characters will walk around and use assets in the environments that paints a strikingly realistic picture of a setting that goes beyond set dressing. Watching a character seamlessly walk around a bar fluidly while pouring themselves a drink in real time seems crazy. I don't know why this blows my mind so much, but it does. All of these animations happen in real time, like I said, where the player can walk around these play spaces while they are happening. I could probably honestly go on about just that small detail for a long time, but I think you get the point. It wasn't about scope here, but packing these spaces with as much detail, history, and character as possible. And it's kind of weird pivoting from Night City to Dogtown because they feel completely different. The vanilla ice cream that combines the rest of the ingredients into one location is often familiar in taste because vanilla is such a classic common flavor that's been around for decades. Not even decades, hundreds of years. But despite its mundanity and name alone, there are countless versions of this flavor that can catch you off guard by its distinctive bite. This next section is called Secrets and Truths, and will focus on the story of this expansion. Now, I use vanilla ice cream as a comparison here because, like I said, it's been around forever, but just because it's a commonplace dessert doesn't mean it can't bring something new to the table to grab people's attention. Likewise, the spy genre has been around since the early 19th century, and by this point in media, it has been done to death with movies like Mission Impossible and the James Bond movies that really brought these tense, action-packed pictures to soaring popularity that they still maintain today. And while much of the media that resides within this genre can feel a bit samey at times, every so often one will come along that takes a new angle and cracks a window into a room that desperately needs it. But this isn't a video about movies, it's about a game. So Phantom Liberty does exactly what I was just talking about. It's a narrative that takes clear inspiration from many spy films across the decades, and it even indulges in a lot of the cliches you'll see in them.
Don't turn around. Eyes on the court. Hands. What you holding?
Like the ominous stare out the window with your hands behind your back, but it doesn't relish in these cliches, but it uses them in moments that make sense and show love for this type of story. It's a rather depressing story too, well, not even just a rather depressing story, it's straight up gut-wrenchingly sad at times because it's a story that focuses a lot more on the human side of broken people that is just encased within a spy thriller. There are lots of what the fuck moments that warps around this constantly unfolding narrative, which is always giving you new pieces of information that you don't see coming. At least I didn't see coming. This expansion really kicks off swiftly when you're contacted by a person calling themselves Songbird. A person telling us that they can save our lives and help us with a relic because they're in a serious bind.
The plane's been hacked. Trajectory set for Night City. They'll bring us down to Dogtown soon. Our comms are down, most likely jammed. The relic was my only option.
Songbird has intel that the plane she's on is going to be shot down that just happens to be carrying the president of the NUSA. Doing so will isolate her from the rest of the NUSA because the NUSA has no authority in Night City. The whole who you can trust theme is immediately brought into play because you have no idea whether the person is telling the truth or simply exploiting V for their own gains. A common thought that comes across many of the game's characters during our business with them. What happens next is an action-packed set piece to save the president, which ends up leading to the best boss fight in the entire expansion as you take on a giant chimera mech in a fully destructible environment. This was a fucking incredible way to open the game. But unfortunately, none of the remaining bosses offer this much diversity, so enjoy it while you can. Most of the other ones just boil down to shoot until dead. With the help of Songbird, V is able to get the president to safety in an abandoned building on the edge of Dogtown where Songbird doesn't show. So rationally, we wait till morning to see that she still hasn't shown up, and then the president tasks us with tracking down an old FIA agent by the name of Reed, which of course brings in Idris Elba.
Solomon Reed's the name. 7 years ago, he headed up our intelligence efforts in Night City. He and So-Mi were a team.
What follows is a whole arc of trying to find out what happened to Songbird and uncover her role in everything that's going on in Dogtown and with Dogtown's leader, Kurt Hansen. It's as complex a story as its characters as you build new alliances, mend old wounds with partners, and try to do right by someone who has no real autonomy with their body or their own life. Initially, it seems obvious what the story is going to be about and who the main antagonist is, but who the antagonist is really dependent on the choices you make during the game's 5 choice events that entirely change the last quarter of the expansion. The characters you sided with and the places you visit will differ substantially, much like the conclusion of the story. The 5 endings all impact V as well, because completing the good quote-unquote ending gives you an alternate ending to V's story in the main game. But there really is no right way to beat the game, because your outcome will be based on how you resonate with Songbird, Reed, and their complex relationship with each other and their duty. Speaking of complex relationships, the pie crust pieces in this ice cream on their own are a little weird. They're kind of dry and they don't really have any significant amount of flavor if you take them out. But as a package deal, it works staggeringly well. Maybe that's a horrible comparison, but what I'm saying is if you took the characters out of this world, they wouldn't really fit anywhere else. But within this world and the story, they piece the entire thing together in unexpected ways. This next segment is called A Cracked Shell, and will be an attempt to look deeper into the characters and their layers. See, you see what I did there? I keep bringing ice cream back into this with the layers. Okay. This whole story really revolves around Songbird, so it's logical to start with her. She's a highly proficient net runner for President Myers that seems entirely capable, compassionate, and logical during the game's opening.
I know about the bomb ticking in your head. If I could disarm it now, I would in a heartbeat. You'll feel better.
It seems like she is just a person trying to make the best out of a bad situation, which makes her character and her arc so compelling because you don't really ever know who she truly is until the game's final act. Many of the characters you'll interact with within the story all have a past with Songbird, and they all seem to say the same thing, that she is extremely reckless and impulsive when it comes to making weighted choices.
Songbird hired me. Know her?
So-Mi.
Something up?
We used to work together. I thought I heard the last about her, but that girl's a magnet for trouble.
When it's uncovered that she sided with Kurt Hansen to get out of the grasps of the NUSA, it comes as a shock because despite her betrayal that would result in her death or even just a life sentence, she still makes an effort on her part to save people that she has a close connection with.
The president's life, her safety, that's your top priority.
Kurt Hansen is using Songbird for his own gains though, because she's not just a netrunner, but it turns out she is a literal walking weapon that the NUSA has been keeping in their back pocket that could end wars before they even start. So at the start of the game, when President Myers is concerned about her, it first comes off as compassionate and sympathetic, like she cares about this person, when in reality she sees Songbird as a tool that can't fall into enemy hands.
I need to find her. You don't leave your people behind enemy lines.
Liar!
And this is exactly how Kurt Hansen sees her. And while he did save her, he sees the resemblance of a tool for his own means. So her escape attempt didn't really work.
Ground the plane, that was a plan. Didn't expect he'd blow it to shit.
At times her character is kind of hard to feel bad for, especially once you meet Reed, but once you kind of learn about her past and how she was inducted into the FIA at a young age and then taken advantage of for years, you kind of start to feel for her. Well, I know I did. Some people hate her as a character, and that's the beauty of her character. I, for one, can understand how messed up she is. She's been built around a life where you use people for your own gains, even if it isn't malicious, which is why I still got her to safety after she told me the truth that there was never a cure for me and she lied the entire time because she needed my help, and honestly, due to my position, I was really easy to manipulate.
Couldn't just tell me the truth, Song.
Needed you to help me. Needed to be sure you would.
The interesting debate online is that she is a horrible, manipulative person, and I don't necessarily disagree. But if you step back and you look at her humanity and how it has been literally stripped from her as AI takes over her brain because of an experiment Myers has been forcing on her, it just hits different.
The emptiness grows. I feel it. Fill it with memories. They keep taking them away.
Does it make her a bad person to use the one tool she has to finally get out of a life that has been killing her for years? I don't know, and that's what's so brilliant about it. In fact, even the name is brilliant. Songbird is the perfect name and obviously a metaphor for a caged songbird trying to flee its captivity. Now, Reed was definitely one of the reasons so many people were excited for the game, because Idris Elba is a massive star, so seeing his name attached to a game as prolific as Cyberpunk had everyone excited to some degree, especially because now they're known for having big star power with Keanu Reeves in the base game. I liked his character a lot. I will say though that sometimes his delivery seemed a little too stiff.
Could be right. Staying alert's never a bad idea.
It was probably intentional with direction though, because he's supposed to be the strong silent type that locks his emotions away to do his job effectively. Still, his character has a depressing background as an FIA agent that was shot down and betrayed by his own organization for means of a cover-up story. He just barely survived the assassination attempt at the hands of Songbird and laid low in Dogtown as a sleeper agent, still intending to serve a nation that left him to die like a dog. You would think after such an attempt on his life was made that he would be conflicted, but his conviction to serve the best nation in the world in his eyes is everything to him, opting to jump right back in to save the day, despite what it may mean for him. Being an agent is all he really knows, and he takes patriotism to a whole new extreme, but he insists he's doing it more for Songbird than he is his country. There's an air of mystery surrounding Reed the entire game because everyone you talk to seems hellbent on telling you to never trust him, and he gives this impression off himself by how cryptic he is, which makes sense given his profession. He will even show up during certain story beats to check in on you when he's really just keeping tabs on you because he doesn't trust you.
V, good to see you.
Not giving me any breathing room, huh? Trust an issue.
Just looking out.
It's clear he doesn't trust you or anyone, when in all actuality, he's kind of more open and honest about the unfolding events than anyone else is in the game, and it throws you off guard. But his views at the end of the day are misplaced because he trusts in a nation that exploits everyone. Much like Songbird is connected to Reed's past, so too is Alex, an FIA agent. I know, that's crazy that she's an FIA agent too. She was at one point in time Reed's protege. After Reed was shot and left for dead, Alex never obviously heard from him again and was stationed in Dogtown to continue her undercover work that she just grew to hate. She hates Dogtown.
Wouldn't count on brevity. Me? One and the same mission for the last 7 fucking years. Been working the local arms and tech dealers since the war. My one-op that. Going real swell.
I really like Alex. She's probably my second favorite character and a nice contrast to the rest of the cast because she just seems like a genuine person that has managed to retain a lot of who she is despite the trauma that she has endured.
Who would you be, if not a secret agent and master of disguise?
An actor.
No hesitation there.
Always dreamed of seeing my face on a show bill.
Plus, her shape-shifting tech makes her unique, which is something that you get to experience the first time you even meet her. She has raw emotions regarding Reed and needs help from the player to mend those wounds to get her to work with us. She's smart, resourceful, and comes across as the only one in the group that you can fully trust. One of the best moments in the game is just one that's personal, where Alex and you let off steam at a bar, drinking, talking, and then later dancing. Though first person dancing looks fucking awkward as hell, but it's the calm before the storm, and it's a totally optional encounter and one that you shouldn't miss. Now, I realize Johnny's place and story were the focus of V's fight for survival in the base game, so you may be asking yourself, why the hell am I talking about him here? And that's because we get to see a side of him that we never really see in the base game, and I'm glad they didn't exclude him here. His third-party intrusive narrative that surrounds many of the game's pivotal moments is some of the best writing found here. It all seems incredibly natural, with a character as stubborn as Johnny having time of actual self-reflection here. He has growth that expands his character in a way that can make you see him in a different light almost. He sees a lot of himself in Reed, or rather what he could have become if he didn't become a deserter for the armed forces. The section where he tells us all of this information is probably one of the best written parts of the entire game.
Getting shelled in your dugout, chooms are taking refreshing phosphorus showers, and some officers ranting about loyalty and duty. The moment you stop shitting carrots and they wave the value stick, fucking run, rabbit. Run.
Johnny uses his environment around him, in this case is a basketball court, and he uses it as an analogy for playing the spy game right, and will even comment on certain dialogue options.
Hard to say. The longer we sit here.
That's it. Dribble around him.
Are you followed?
The authenticity is breathtaking.
You're breathtaking!
Now, Kurt Hansen and Rosalind Myers are both pretty unlikable as far as characters go, and I think that was intentional. Kurt Hansen is an illegal businessman with a heavy foothold in the arms race around Night City. He's well voiced and well acted, and he can be a little intimidating during story missions where you interact with him, but he's just kind of the cliche bad guy.
I should send you back to Night City in body bags, filled with pieces.
Rosalind Myers is a tricky one because when you initially rescue her, she seems charismatic, strong-willed, and friendly.
Look what I found. What do you say? There's more in the fridge. Feel free. You earned it.
But depending on the choices you make later in the game, you get to see the real side of her that's the cold, calculated killer. Outside of the opening and ending of the expansion, she's not really an active chess piece on the board, so she's not worth going super in-depth about anyway, aside from the fact that she has forced Songbird into a place called the Black Wall in cyberspace. This is where pieces of her memory are being stolen from her. This Black Wall access connects everyone and everything around the world, making it deadlier than a nuclear bomb that corrupts the minds of its visitors. Well, Rosalind Myers isn't worth going super in-depth for. What is worth going in-depth for is the last layer, the white chocolate chunks. I call this chapter Operations, which basically just means missions. The rest of the package is a soft delight that encompasses the layers well. But when you bite down on the missions, you find that they hit hard, and I mean that in a good way. There are so many missions that range significantly in activities, and each one is likely to knock your socks off. The amount of detail and set pieces scattered around every mission makes the base game look like a pizza without pineapple on it, which is sad and lonely. Some of these activities you don't even have to partake in, but I'm telling you that if you don't, you're going to be missing out on some extremely well-crafted pieces of art. There are so many that I can't even cover them all here, like the mission where you ambush a MaxTac convoy and then you get to decide the position of assault in either the offensive or defensive equipment you use during it. Infiltrating Kurt Hansen's very own penthouse club called the Black Sapphire was otherworldly because it's coated in this extravagant display of opulence and elegance that later has a dance performance that you can watch on the stage, arguably one of the best music numbers I've ever seen in any game, and it's optional. Perhaps my favorite mission by far is one that needs build up over a few tasks that takes the movie premise of Face Off to a whole new level. We need to infiltrate Kurt Hansen's compound, and the only way to do this is to take the place of a set of twins he is meeting for a lucrative deal. This whole ordeal requires you to chat them up, get their bioscans, and then later track them down, hijack their car on the way to the meeting, and then take their place while you literally walk around and talk like them.
Check, check. Oh shit, my voice. Nice. Hang on, that's me? What the hell?
Dream, right? Give it a whirl. Introduce yourself.
The best part is there is a chance to fail this mission because there are so many dialogue choices that you have to get right on a time limit, because you're acting like a different person, making you put yourself in their shoes. It does wonders building tension around a simple sit and talk scenario.
And just who is this friend who remembers me so well?
Raquel asked me to say hello.
She did her time under max security, C block. Said her rat tattoo might jog your memory.
This Raquel is clearly mistaken. Max security is separate from the VIP wing where I stayed. Thank God.
Now you can pick up all of this information by just chatting to them at the roulette table during the Black Sapphire mission. But here is also an information slip where you can use to learn about the person you're pretending to be, so passing these dialogue choices isn't really hard. I personally opted not to use it, and I did really well. I think this level of detail is incredible. Even the quiet missions are equally as impressive as they let the action take a backseat in favor of pure dialogue, atmosphere, and emotion. See, all of these layers come together to form this amazing package that is the Phantom Liberty, and for analogy's sake, the ice cream. You may think that without one ingredient it could still flourish, but each layer is so integral to the experience that even just one would be sorely missed. The ingredients are all there for a reason, and each one of them have substantial depth, offering a package with near perfect execution. I only have a few problems with the game, and one of them is the lack of well thought out boss fights. That to me seems like a huge missed opportunity, especially when they started the expansion off strong with a boss fight that had phases and a plethora of different attacks. There could have been a little bit more enemy variety too. Most of the time you just fight guys with guns, or they're a little bit bigger guys with guns. The introduction of mechs and vehicle combat could and should have been utilized more for variety in gameplay, but it's never really taken advantage of. And of course, like I said before, the devs missed some prominent bugs that define Cyberpunk's launch. I did have a few enemies T-pose after death. Some encounters were bugged where I either couldn't find the person shooting at me, or they were locked in a room that I didn't have the required skills to open, and then there were just some spotty, bugged animations here and there. But in the grand scheme of things, these slight issues are nothing of note, particularly because they never hindered my ability to proceed, and they never resulted in anything but a slight laugh. The Phantom Liberty feels like the story and world CDPR wanted to build from the get-go. There's a lot of ambition, pride, and hard work put into this 30-hour expansion, and it's clear there was linear focus on what they wanted it to be. It feels cohesive and individualized from the rest of Night City's attractions and stories. Even the side gigs have a lot of personality and great writing that share Night City's depressing atmosphere, and it's used effectively. From solving a murder where you decide the fate of a delusional killer, to sneaking your way into an underground athletes club where disgustingly unlawful practices are happening. It's all captivating stuff, and it gives you some amount of choice. So you take a look back at the fridge you have, and it's hard to say it isn't worth the money. Not only does it look better than ever, but it's filled to the brim with nourishing foods that will last you a long time as you fight, drive, decide, and dip your way through it all. The common saying is, save the best for last. The holy dessert you dive into once the main meal is over with is frequently better than the foods you had prior. Some people may even opt to skip right to dessert, and I'd say that they're making the right decision. The Phantom Liberty on its own has strong enough legs to carry the rest of the game, and if this is a telltale sign of what we can expect next from them in the future, then I think Cyberpunk 2 has the serious potential to become something phenomenal right out of the gate. As of right now, Phantom Liberty is my favorite gaming experience of 2023. A true heavy hitter that rivals full-price AAA games in quality and quantity. So thank you, CDPR. Thank you so much. That's going to wrap this video up. If you liked it, please be sure to like, comment, subscribe. As the young folks say, smash that like button, do all that good stuff. Thank you for watching the video. I greatly appreciate it, and peace out.